The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has said that no fewer than 400 members of its have been sacked by proprietors of members of institutions who persecuted them for fighting for their rights and the interests of the university system. Now, ASUU has said that the intimidation and persecution were common in state-owned institutions, as governors who have visited or visitors to these institutions don't tolerate opposing views and policies, which lecturers saw as not being in the interest of educational system in their respective universities. Now, the immediate past chairman of ASUU, University of Lagos chapter, Dr. Dele Ashiru, he disclosed this while speaking with journalists at the end of leadership training workshop that was organized by the Union for New Executive of the university's branch that was held in Ogun State branch. Now, while stating that the union has been standing against persecution and would continue to fight for the genuine interests of its members, Ashiru, however, said that the union would also not tolerate any unethical behavior from any of its members. Now, let's go back to the beginning of that story where it has actually told us what ASUU is saying now, that some of the governors of some of these state-owned universities, or the states where these universities are resident, do not welcome opposing views. They don't tolerate opposing views and policies. And these lecturers, on the other hand, when they feel like something is not right, they stand, according to them, in the interest of the educational system and in the interest of the university system. And now back to this. They are lamenting the sack of their members. Up to 400 members have been sacked due to all of these opposing views that ASUU had time and time again.
Well, sad story. I cannot really justify those who were sacked and those who the government that sacked them. Now, as an employee, you must also understand that the opinion of your employer is superior to your own opinion. I think that's where most of the ASUU members need to get it right. The government is your employer. So for you to be employed and you want to frustrate the business of your employer.
So fighting for the rights of the universities or for the interests of education is being...
You see, when you talk about fighting for, I think it's not a better word. If you say advocating for the betterment of the university system, but what is the betterment over the period, over the years, where ASUU will go to strike close to 8 months, 9 months, frustrating the students of such institutions? You are aware of students who were supposed to graduate in 4 years, ended up in 7 years. So in as much as what they are advocating for seems to be okay in their eyes, state government also look at it and say no. Because in those cases, even when they are on strike, they were expecting salaries. So government feels that no, we can't continue to frustrate our children this way. So if you want to work in this kind of working environment with this kind of policies, go ahead. But if you continue to breach the peace and the process of learning in our state institutions, we will sack you. So I think it calls for wisdom. Where your own right begins, where your own right ends, that's where the next man's right begins. So ASUU members, I want to call on you all to understand that government also have some level of rights over you. So don't always think that your right is supreme. Don't always think that you must hold government to ransom. Holding government to ransom is holding the students to ransom.
Some of the things that ASUU have been asking for are very basic things that they should not even go on strike for. Things like salary, things like funding for the universities. Basic things that should ordinarily be taken care of. These are the things that ASUU has to go up and talk about and then say, oh, we've been talking about this thing, nothing is being done. I think we would have to go on strike.
You see, like I said last time, that the issue of strike has become very interesting to some ASUU members, not all, because of the private businesses they run, because of their overseas trips and all of that.
Like you have said, some, not all.
Yes.
It also shows us that ASUU as a body, right, you've talked about some lecturers, ASUU as a body are saying that this is for the betterment of the educational system. Now, they have lined out or listed out the reason they are going on strike. It has never been private. It has always been public for the public to see. This is why we are going on strike. Because the things need to change. Do you understand what I'm saying now? That's the reason ASUU sometimes go on strike when they go on strike. So for you to actually say that they are fighting, or some of them are doing it for their private business, that's just some of them, and that's on the other side. But it doesn't take away the fact that the reasons are always open to us.
You see, for me, I commend state governments who have taken measures to stop strike in their government institutions. And that's why if you watch well, most people are sending their children to state government universities, because the chances of them going to strike is being reduced. So, which is wonderful. Now you have governing council. You have the Senate. That's why I appreciated the autonomy of the universities. Because to a reasonable extent, they have a kind of a governing system. But I assume that the ASUU is not even respecting those governing systems. Because if your demands are also sent to the governing council, to the Senate, it could be looked upon. Now, then it will be treated in a very matured and civil way. Now, I also want to discourage that spirit of unionism. The spirit of unionism should not be very much effective in a learning institution. Because of course,
they speak with one voice if there's no
of course, you are aware that students who, protest against some of the ills in the universities are being sent away from the university. They are being victimized. So if you go to most of these schools, the student union government is not even effective. Because even them don't like such kind of...
Is that something that should be encouraged?
From ASUU or the students?
No, the students aspect now, because you're using that as a yardstick.
No, what I'm saying is that university system don't even appreciate when student union group or governments protest against what is wrong in the university that they are doing. Most of them have been victimized, we know. So you don't like what your students are doing, but you want to do it to government because you feel that government should enjoy every of your protest and strike and move. So we are saying that nobody likes opposition. I'm not saying that what the demands of ASUU is bad, but my own is that let us put these children first of all, the students. Let us also look at how this educational system can be more resourceful. Like I always said, that the issue of ASUU asking for increment in salary is not necessary for now. What ASUU should be looking for is the review of our academic content.
That's part of the reasons they usually go on strike. But don't you think that it's high time the government focuses on education and solve some of this problem that keeps making ASUU go on strike year in, year out?
Yes, so let me use this opportunity right now. First, to agree that government should, give the university autonomy so that they can manage the institution, so that they can generate revenues and also take good care of the welfare of their staffs, so that the burden will also be relieved from the federal government.
Talking about, you continue with that, you continue with your advocacy, but talking about raising revenue and all of that to run themselves, the universities, and I remember the Senate visited Uni Abuja, they're on strike, and the Senate visited them and told them about their strike, telling them to call it off and all of that, and they also advised them. Now, I need your thoughts on this. They've advised ASUU or universities now to think of other alternatives to raise funds instead of solely or almost solely depending on the government for funding of the universities?
So you see, that's what we're advocating.
That's not autonomy.
No. You see,
that's still saying the government will own the government will own control of the funds of the universities, but you now as universities look for alternative means. That's not autonomy.
You see, the university has also been looking for alternative means. But the problem is that most of them are selfish with what they generate. They don't use it for the upkeep and the development of the institutions.
That's a very broad statement.
Yes, it's broad. Most lecturers know that they are generating money from their students, of course. Every semester, they know.
We're talking about the university.
That's why when we say university, is not spirit, it's human being. We are talking about the resources that
you're talking about the resources that the lecturers generate from the students individually. We all know that that's an individual resource. That's an individual
wonderful
funding.
Yes, individual funding.
People now, funding their pockets individually.
You see, which is wrong. Now, there is nothing wrong. Nothing absolutely wrong. I know that most of these universities get intervention funds.
And we're also talking about investments. The universities invest.
Because they are not productive. That's why the complaint is every day. The university is supposed to be a production ground where they can have farms.
Which some of them do.
Yes, what kind of farm and what is the usage of that resources?
Maybe you would have to
so that. No, that's why we are saying that there is some level of insincerity, unfaithfulness in the revenue that they generate.
So if you are calling for autonomy now, and you have already stated that some of these universities, the revenue they generate, they're not being sincere with it, don't you think that's what will play out if they have autonomy?
It's not absolute autonomy. You have autonomy and you also have absolute autonomy. In this case, they will have autonomy.
To do what?
To run the institution, but not absolute autonomy. Where the absolute autonomy is not given to them, it means that the Ministry of Education will still supervise them. The federal government still owns the university, but they are saying, run this university with these policies.
It comes back to the question that I asked now. With the states that they are in right at the moment,
yes,
we are saying, or you are saying, that the revenues, even the revenues they generate, that they're not even investing it in the universities, back in the universities.
Yes.
That they're not, some of these universities are not being sincere with the revenues that they generate. And now you're saying, give them this level, like you have said, the level of autonomy now. If they are giving this level of autonomy, do you not still see this playing out even more?
You see, that's why the minds of the university managers or the academic institution managers have to be renewed. With the kind of mind that most of them have, even if federal government gives them trillions and billions, it will still be useless. So what I'm appealing is that, one, for instance, the resources that lecturers generate, if they generate those resources for the purpose of making that department to work well, I think you will see improvements. But because they generate that resources to buy cars for themselves, to have a more pleasurable life and comfortable life, that they think their salary is not good enough. That's why we are having problems. So my own is that you are already generating revenue from handout and all that, sorting and all of that. So why are you asking for more money?
Wow.
So be asking students to generate those resources, hence you are compelling them to have it. So if their parents are able to give, let those resources be used to maintain that department for the student to have the right tools for their training.
We all know that this is not legal, and it's not something that some of these universities encourage. Lecturers making handouts compulsory. So even the lecturers that are doing it, it's not open. They do it undercover. That's what some of the lecturers are doing it. So saying that the university is generating funds by lecturers selling handouts if some of these lecturers are reported, they might be sanctioned because it's not something that some of these universities encourage.
You see, we are saying that.
So that's not even a revenue generation.
No, what we are trying to encourage here is that departments of our universities, if they are resourceful, they can generate revenue. For instance, the electrical department of a particular university can bid for a contract of a particular building, can bid for a contract of government projects, and then they go and deliver and execute it, and that profits that another contractor would have generated goes to the institution. The civil engineering department can bid for the building of the construction of a particular project, both to private individuals, to organizations and government. If they bid and they succeed, right, they can also generate revenue for their department. Likewise to agricultural department, they can, get a farm, develop that farm, get the product, sell it. At the end of it, they will generate revenue. So what I'm appealing is that what the Senate is saying is actually right. The university should begin to think of how to generate revenue, not to muzzle the students. Like I said the last time, that government, give us. If they give you the autonomy to run the university, generate revenue, maintain the welfare of your staffs, but if it will not be a burden on the student, because at the end of the day, because most will not think out of the box, it will yield to increment of school fees, increment of pay, not thinking outside of the box like the Senate is saying. So like I'm suggesting, this department...
That means you're no longer asking for autonomy now for the universities.
No. We have autonomy. We have absolute autonomy.
Nobody is talking about absolute autonomy.
No, what they are asking for is autonomy. That's what ASUU is asking for. They are not asking for absolute autonomy. So I say, and I'm supporting that autonomy should be given to the universities, but not absolute autonomy. Because where we restrict the absolute autonomy is to see enable government to checkmate some of the SSCs that may not be healthy for the universities. So for me, the autonomy is welcome, but not absolute autonomy. Of course, ASUU is not asking for absolute autonomy. So autonomy is okay.
All right, then the sack of 400 members of ASUU?
Well, I think it's from different institutions. And we do not really know why they were sacked. And I'm sure if they were unlawfully sacked, the law gives them the empowerment to challenge such sack. Now, if they were wrongly sacked, they can challenge the government. They can challenge their institution. Are you getting it? For wrongly sacking them. But if they were justifiably sacked, I think that ASUU should appeal on their behalf. Look at the reasons why they were sacked, because sometimes somebody will say, I'm being sacked because I joined in protest. I'm being sacked because I used to condemn what they are doing. I'm being sacked and no verification. So I think I'm calling on ASUU to properly investigate on some of these sacked members, if it is the one that they were justifiably sacked, because their economy will be affected and their families, ASUU can plead on their behalf. And if ASUU plead, I want to also beg the institutions for which they were working for to still consider them and then caution them not to do what is not right.
All right.